How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer, coming at you with a little bit of a vlog, a little bit of a driving vlog. I do apologize for the sun. Just getting off work here. I worked 8 in the morning till 6 at night. It's been a long day. So it's time to go pick up my dinner, and you guys know what's on sale on Wednesdays. Home of the Whopper, baby! I'll get the 2 Whopper deals. 2 Whoppers for $8.
Okay, is that everything?
And I'll get a small fry with that.
Anything else?
I think that'll do it. I said, can you dig it? Alright, so we're back in the games room, and yeah, that wasn't a real good idea. That didn't sit well. You know, it's always how it goes. You know, once in a while you get that urge for a Whopper or a Big Mac, and then you go and you buy it and you eat it and you wolf it down, and then after the fact you're like, why the f did I do that? So I really got to stop that. I really got to curb that sort of eating pattern. I, like a lot of you guys out there and gals, you probably go to the grocery store once in a while and you're like this is it, this is the day, the month, the year that I'm going to eat healthy, and that lasts for a couple of weeks, and then you kind of go back into the bad habits again, and sometimes the old habits die hard, as they say. So yeah, I really gotta fix that. Which brings me into my next segment. I picked up well, I'll get into it in a minute, but I picked up a wine cooler, and I picked up a few beer last night to put in the wine cooler, and I'm just looking at this now. It was a craft beer, Backyard. I'm reading it now. It says light lager. Had I known it was a light beer, I don't know if I would have bought it. But then again, after eating those 2 Whoppers, I'm sure a light beer won't hurt me. So, I did want to mention, I really appreciate, you know, all the kind things everybody had to say as I spill my beer here about me and my mother there from the last video I posted. It really means a lot. I think she's going to be all right. And yeah, it's just amazing that a community, especially a lot of people that I've never actually seen before, but I only communicate via comments, it still means a lot to me, all the kind words and the thoughts. So I really do appreciate that. So the next thing I want to talk about here is there's really not a lot to talk about, and I'm not going to shoot a video and try to, you know, throw out a fluff piece talking about something gaming related when it's just really, you know, me trying to make up content that's really not that interesting. So, you know, for the next little while, I may shoot videos that aren't so much gaming related, but it's not that I don't want to talk about video games. There's just really not a lot to talk about right now. I know my buddy there, Galactius X, he's from overseas in Europe. He posted a video there earlier today, and he was talking about some of his older, I guess, cassette tapes he used to listen to back in the day, and cassette tapes that used to make him horny. And he was showing the Go-Go's their album Talk Show, so we had a good laugh over that. And then he was showing an album there from a group called Spandau Ballet. Now, buddy, I was looking for my record. I have their debut album. What's it called there? Journeys to Glory. I do have it kicking around somewhere, but I just couldn't find it for this video. So I pulled out a couple of other albums here for a couple of other English bands. The first one here is The Mission, God's Own Medicine. Fantastic album. And the other one I have here is the band The Alarm. So 2 really good albums from the 80s. Can't recommend them enough. So yeah, I was able to finally sell my mother's vehicle last night. I was asking $1,500 for it. It was like a 2006 Pontiac Pursuit G5. It had just under 200,000 kilometers, 175. And finally, I had a couple of country bumpkins show up with their son, and they were like, "Do you take a check?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll take a bank draft," because nowadays the bank, at least in Canada, they don't give you certified checks anymore. They give you what's called a bank draft. You pay like $10. It's just like a certified check. And they didn't want to do that. And they're like, "We take an e-transfer." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." and they sent me the e-transfer on the driveway, and it didn't come through right away. It took like a half hour standing there waiting for this email to come through, and it finally came through. And then they drove off without insurance. That's their problem. They signed the ownership. It's in their hands now. But, you know, it's just like anything else that you sell on Kijiji. A lot of times you're running the risk that people will follow up with you after the fact. And these people will not leave me alone. They're like, is there a remote starter? Can you send me a bill of sale? Like, asking me all these questions. It's like, enough. I sold you the car as is. You took it. You drove off. Now leave me the fuck alone. So that's why I hate selling shit on Kijiji. Kind of pisses me off. But I was able to sell the car, and then my mother's like, whatever you get from the car, you can keep it for yourself because you helped me buy a new car and sell the used car. And I'm like, well, no, it's your money. She's like, no, keep it for yourself. And they had like a wine cooler on sale at Canadian Tire, which is kind of like our Canadian's hardware store, if you will. And it was like $175. So I picked up a wine cooler. I'll show it to you once I actually have it full of wine. But I bought it just because when you buy a house, you kind of have to, if you can, try to modernize it as much as you can to keep it up to date. And the previous owners, they actually owned a winery. They made wine. And go figure, when they sold the house to me, they left the washer, dryer, the stove, and the refrigerator here. Which is one of the reasons why I bought the house, but they took away the wine cooler that they had, which was underneath the kitchen counter. There's a spot for the wine cooler. And when you buy a wine cooler, you got to make sure the measurements are right, because if you get one that's too big, then it might not fit where you're trying to put it, obviously. And if it's too small, it could look out of place as well. So the one I picked up is just the right size. So like I said, when you have real responsibilities such as owning a house or anything else for that matter, sometimes video games kind of has to take a back seat. I have lots of other things around the house that I have to update, as they say. So it's very, it's very picky choosy. It's like, yeah, it's fun to romanticize about buying an Xbox Series X and buying a Mega SG from Analog, but at the same time, how can I justify buying stuff like that when I need like new elements for my stove or new updates to the washer and dryer and all that good stuff. So it comes with the purchase, right? When you buy a house. Now I know my buddy Afro Gamer Dude, he just bought a house himself. Now if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a couple of years old, so he's probably good. He probably doesn't really need to update too much. But like, it's like anything else. Like a house is just like a car. If you don't maintain it, it's gonna break down. It's like if you buy a car and you drive till the wheels fall off. You see all the time people buy brand new cars and they don't change the oil, they don't change the spark plugs, they don't change the fluids. And that's why I'm always skeptical when I buy a used car. So it is what it is. The last thing I want to mention here, my buddy Turbo Joe, he mentioned it. Now he's in the US, he's near New York. He mentioned there's a new documentary on Netflix. It is gaming related. I think it's called High Score or The Highest Score, and he was asking me if I had seen it, and I'm like, no, I haven't heard of it. I'm like, I'll check Canadian Netflix, because a lot of times Canadian Netflix is just like littered with Canadian content, and it's not really the greatest content, if I'm being honest with you. I logged on to Netflix tonight, and sure as shit, this documentary here, High Score, popped right up, so it's brand new. So it must just be on Canadian and US Netflix, maybe other places around the world. It's a 6-part series. I'm going to check it out tonight. Joe says it's pretty damn awesome, so excited to check that out as well. Last thing I want to talk about before I go, I'm going to try to put out a Call the Wild nature video later on this week if I can. I haven't done one of those in about 2 months. And I want to do a Movies on the Run episode as well. I'd like to talk about one of my most favorite movies of all time, a fantastic documentary. It's called The Thin Blue Line. It's an Errol Morris documentary from 1988, and it is a true story about a guy that was put in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. And it wasn't until after the documentary came out years later that it actually got the real killer on camera, more or less confessing to the murder. And then after the documentary came out, the court revisited the case, and they were able to overturn the conviction, and the guy that was wrongfully imprisoned got released from prison, once he got released from prison, he actually sued Errol Morris because I guess he didn't like the fact that his likeliness was being used in the movie, and he didn't realize he signed over his life story to Errol Morris to make this movie. So it's a real fantastic piece. It's a real impressive movie, and I won't talk about it too much here, but I'm looking forward to talking about that in a future Movies on the Run episode as well. So again, I'm going to leave it there. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm going to go ahead and finish this light beer. I got to work again at 7 o'clock in the morning, so that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.